Good afternoon, everybody. It's Wednesday afternoon, September 23rd, 2020, and it's time for an Ekkono Open Fika again. It's been a while. It's been summer and everything in between. So this is the first Open Fika in the second half of 2020. My name is Linden. I'm CEO of Ekkono, and with me today I have my co-founder and Ekkono's CTO, Rikard König. And we're actually going to kick things off with kind of a soft fika, so to say, rather than a fact-packed tech session, where we're going to share some of the background story behind Ekkono and some entrepreneurial experiences and anecdotes. But first, before we get started, just some quick rules of engagement. The idea is that you should be able to engage or interact with us. If you have any practical questions, anything that doesn't work, please use the chat function. And we have Eleanor behind the scene that will help you. If you have any questions or comments to me and Rikard, use the Q&A function. If you even would like to comment live, if you want to make a comment, we can unmute you. All you have to do is wave your hand, raise your hand. There's a function for that in Zoom. You're probably familiar with that, everyone, by now. But until then, everyone's on mute. So let us know if there's something you'd like to add to the conversation. So without further ado, let's dive into this first Open Fika. Like I said, this is probably the hardest Open Fika ever, right, Rikard? It's one thing to talk about our product and all the cool things that our customers do using our technology. It's something entirely different to talk about yourself. And it kind of goes against our nature as humble Swedes to talk about ourselves. But I hope that we can provide some laughs and some inspirations for others by sharing this naked truth of ups and downs, learnings, the good and the bad with being an entrepreneur, and what's our driving force in doing what we do. Our marketing department did a tremendous job of describing the Ekkono story on our website just the other day. So you find that at Ekkono.ai. It even includes some revealing pictures from the past, so please enjoy. But let's start with a short recap of our background and how we came to where we are with Ekkono. Rikard, do you want to go first?
Yes, of course. Well, my journey really started back in 1989 when I got my first computer, a Swedish-made ABC-80 with 32 kilobytes of RAM. That was the extra powerful version then. And my friends got the much cooler Atari, but the good thing with the ABC-80 was that the source code was easily available. And that, of course, led me to try to find ways to cheat and get extra lives in the games. After that, I wanted to see how the logic behind the non-player character worked, and that took me straight to artificial intelligence. 8 years later, I started at the system architect program at the University of Borås, where they were actually teaching AI and machine learning already back in 1998. I did both my bachelor and master thesis related to AI, and then got the opportunity to do a PhD on the subject. And what I really loved by doing research was to be able to deep dive into my core interest of machine learning and create new algorithms for a wide range of problems. I did, for example, work with doing campaign forecasts for ICA-handlarna. I was trying to predict the driver's influence on the fuel consumption of Scania's trucks. And my favorite research project was, of course, trying to create tailored golf swing recommendations based on radar data. But even if I got to apply my research to many different problems, I was frustrated on the speed of development and that the real impact was not clearly visible. I wanted to take it one step further and out in the real world, as we say, to make a real difference. The general idea then was to distill my research and experience into product that would make machine learning available for the broader public, not just researcher. And I wanted to create something like a one-button product that performed the machine learning for you. However, it soon became obvious that the big challenge was to find the best application. I had many ideas where some of the more promising ones were, for example, doing like an automated sales analysis as a plugin to iSettle, the payment solution, and breaking up the sales based on influencing factors such as weather or day of week. And I tested this on a friend who was an owner of a food truck selling hamburgers. But it turned out that just knowing the influence of weather did not add really a big value, since you can't control the weather yet anyhow. So the next study then, okay, let's try to predict the amount of meat you will need to order the next day, so you don't order too much. But then he said, well, it's not a problem either. I can just have a just-in-time delivery from the store. I also went quite far with this idea of making personalized golf recommendation. It would definitely deliver a high value to all golfers, and there's a lot of money in golf. But it was a big effort to collect the initial data that you needed, and especially since the required golf radar was not commonplace at that time. So needless to say, I needed help. And I got that through a grant aimed for looking at commercialization of research. And I got in touch with you then, who was then allegedly known as to being a very savvy IT entrepreneur with a telecom background.
So when we met in 2015, I had just left Procera Networks, and among other things, I did this commercialization of research assignment with you. I can admit it was kind of intimidating, considering that I had absolutely 0 university points in my history. So, but I have learned to appreciate that I have something else. I have an entrepreneurial skill. I usually call myself a rebounding entrepreneur, since every venture has been followed by yet another one. But I don't think I would have been here if it wasn't for my first boss, Jon Ytterligh. Jon gave me the confidence, an 18-year-old boy, to build a multimedia and internet division at this pre-press company called Ytterligh's Infodesign. I don't know what made him do it, to be honest. A totally fresh youngster with no experience, no financial knowledge, but plenty of ideas and a bag full of ambition, but he did. So seeing myself as an underdog, I've always been extremely I've always had extremely high ambitions to really prove myself. I know you wouldn't believe it today, Rikard, but I was programming at the time. We actually had the same old ABC 80 in common. My dad brought home one of those, and all I could do was basic programming while all my friends were playing games on Commodore 64s. So I realized I was no superstar at programming, which is why I found other ways to deliver. But I learned enough to keep techies honest, as I can usually understand and challenge on what is and what is not possible. And I think that this technical understanding is one of my biggest assets when it comes to entrepreneurship. So that helped me land a job at the Swedish Trade Council, now known as Business Sweden, in Chicago. And when I came back to Sweden after a few years, I did a short séjour at a software company before I founded the schoolbook.com, a procurement site for K-12 educational material, in the middle of the IT bubble, which gave me a hard but very valuable experience in winding down a bankrupt company as the bubble burst. But in the aftermath of the bursted bubble, I was invited as one of 6 co-founders in what was to become Procera Networks, and then Sendvine, a telecom company selling DPI equipment to operators worldwide. It was actually quite good to start in a recession, just like there is one today due to the pandemic, as you can and must focus on solid business criteria, and you didn't have to look over your shoulder every day for a new competitor. So we took that company from scratch to move the headquarters to Silicon Valley, taking it public on the New York Stock Exchange, ringing the opening bell there on April 21st, 2011. Doing a re-IPO on NASDAQ and almost 100 million US in global sales when I left in 2014. So that was anything but a straight line to success. And we were 3 days away from bankruptcy at least 2 or 3 times. But it was a great learning experience, for example, on how expensive money becomes when you desperately need it, and how such a bridge funding dilutes you as a founder, and how luck plays a central role in success, or serendipity, to use a fancy word, since you have to find that one problem at the right occasion where your technology makes a big difference in actually solving that specific problem. So in my experience, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial success is the result of a decent idea, a lot of hard work, definitely that you have to be persistent, and luck or serendipity. So my 13 plus years at Procera rendered me almost what I call 4 real-life MBAs in marketing, management, strategy, and finance, as I took on different roles. And this journey has been extremely valuable as evidence to my entrepreneurial success when talking to investors today. So in my last role as Chief Strategy Officer at Procera, I met telcos all over the world, and they all talked about IoT. The opportunities, but even more so the challenges with billions of connected devices, with sensors that was constantly streaming data. So that was the reason your research really caught my attention, Rikard.
Yeah, but I have to say that I was more than a little bit skeptical about how this telecom guy from Varberg, who know nothing, nothing or almost nothing about AI and machine learning, could help me find the killer angle that I couldn't find myself.
Okay.
But it's turned out you have a nose for business, and you're actually a fast learner, and you always have a very big bag full of visions. And I think that's a very strong point on your side as well.
True. So that's how we met. Me, an entrepreneur with 0 study points, and you, a researcher and senior lecturer who had never worked in the real world. So opposites attract, as the Ekkono story says.
Yeah, and there was definitely some differences. As one that I saw straight away was this of how certain you want to be before you claim that something is possible. As a researcher, you want to be certain, like significantly certain at least 95% confidence level. That's something that you say is true. While a good entrepreneur like you, you can really sell a vision and work against that vision. And if it's not right, you adapt the vision to fit reality better. I often felt that you were living in the clouds, and as we joked it, that you were working on the dreaming department while I was in the delivery department, trying to constantly to pull you down to the ground again. And when I started, for example, I really didn't think that our product was ready for market, but you pushed for taking to the customer directly. And I don't know how many times you quoted Mark Zuckerberg in that. It's not a little bit embarrassing the first time you show your product to a customer, you show it too late. And I was definitely embarrassed a few times in the beginning, but then I realized that it was nothing really to be ashamed of. We were first to market, and the rather limited initial functionality quickly grew to something bigger. And when looking back to it today, I can see that the tension that was between us there was a good match. If we have done what I wanted and to be in my comfort zone, we would never have gotten a product to market. And if we had gone with all your visions, we would probably end up with what we call in Sweden an aircastle. Now we landed in a solid and innovative product based on realistic visions, I would say. Actually.
True. That's cool. But for you, what was the biggest difference in coming to a startup?
Well, it was so much fun. I think everyone is so positive and try to lift each other up and find positive learnings, even in the failures. And then there was the refreshing, pure engineering task of solving problems in a smart way. As a researcher, you always need to find a new way, a better way that no one else had thought about before to solving a problem. Now we could just apply everything I studied and researched about and come up with a solution without wondering if someone else had the same thoughts before. It's not really relevant. And then it was the speed, of course. A research project typically lasts several years, and you can only see a little bit of impact in the end of that project. Now we run several projects in parallel, and they typically last 3 to 4 months. So the reward and actually seeing the result is so much faster and more rewarding. But what do you say, Jon? You have done, as you said, the startup journey before. Was it any different this time with Ekkono?
There were several things that were different. One was that we actually started at 50%. I was kind of happy to touch the ground running with existing results that came from your research. So that still we had to do some fake it till you make it. But as you recall, we brought 2 of my former colleagues from Procera, Anders Arning and Joachim Andersson, with us to join the quartet of founders of Ekkono. And we had all these late night Skype calls after putting the kids to bed. And I remember one time my wife, in frustration, proclaimed that, Jesus, you guys are really playing company. And to some extent, that's actually true. We started with virtually nothing. We didn't have a ready product. We had no customers. We had no money. We had no staff. But we did have a pretty PowerPoint presentation. So then you complete the work on a prototype of the product. You convince a friendly customer, in our case, Systeminstallation, to buy it. You get some money. You use that as leverage to go to VCs to get some more money. You hire some staff, you get some more customers. And before you know it, you have Volvo, ABB, Siemens, and Alfa Laval as customers and 23 employees. And it's one of the happiest and most emotional moments when you, for the first time, stand in front of a group of billion people at the kickoff, like the one we had when we went surfing in Varberg, and realize that this is for real. So In my past, I have no other experience than to build venture-funded tech companies. There are pros and cons with investors. You get money that allows you to invest ahead of the curve, and you can focus on the core opportunity without necessarily seeking for alternative revenue sources. You get the contact network of the investors, and you get the credibility and justification. But it's a constant emotional roller coaster to raise money. Just like I feel every time we go out for another fundraising round, with all the confidence in the world when you kick off, that is broken down to entirely during the intimidating due diligence, and then eventually kind of reaching a crescendo with sweet victory as you finally close the round. I remember in particular my first meeting with Ekkono's investor Jane Bollerud. We had concluded in the founder quartet that there was one and only one suitable investor for any innovative deep tech company like Ekkono, Jane Bollerud. So I had been introduced through a mutual friend, Staffan Trevén, at the Recorded Future, and came to the EVA office in Stockholm full of confidence. 2 minutes into the pitch, Jane started slaughtering my presentation with questions, comments, stories, and doubts. And before I knew it, we were out of time. So I can still see myself standing outside the 7-Eleven downstairs, crying over the failure. And Jane has confirmed this later publicly, that it was a terrible presentation. But fortunately, after calling my wife, she convinced me that there's gotta be some way around this. So figure it out. So I spent the whole train ride down to Varberg perfecting the 3 paragraphs of an email to Jane, asking for a meeting with her husband, Bengt, since Jane had mentioned that he has a big interest in machine learning. And today he's my chairman of the board. And this bad start made it a long run to actually reach the finish line, but we did. And I'm so happy we did, because they have turned out to be tremendous investors. Okay, so with all this emotional, financial, and time invested in a startup like Ekkono, there's got to be a bigger reason for doing it than just money, right? I think you want to make some kind of difference, make some kind of impact, either on a few, like your staff, or for your community, or for the entire world, or for all of the above. And this is why sustainability has been part of Ekkono's DNA since day one. I sincerely believe that we provide the solution for the next big sustainability leap, which is something we talked about in an open fika just before the summer, so you find all that material online. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth the effort. Even though most of the time, I can admit, it is actually kind of fun to play company. Rikard, where will we take this from here?
Well, let's say to the moon. No, wait, that's already done, right?
Yeah,
so
that's done.
Let's take Mars instead. And fun enough, when I'm looking back now, it's 30 years since I got my first computer, and now we're actually running advanced machine learning on devices with a similar capacity, like a Cortex M4 with 32 kilobytes of memory. And we're going to continue with that and enable even more and smaller devices to make every device with a microcontroller smart. And we won't stop short of our vision to become the de facto standard for making connected things smart. And as you said before, I think serendipity is smiling on us as we are the first to market, but without being a decade ahead of market. And if we can just make every machine, vehicle, component, and other device operate a little bit better, a little bit smarter, and a little bit more efficient, then I also think that edge machine learning will be the next sustainability leap. And that is what I really think is the most important and rewarding part of this journey, that we're going to make a real difference and leave this planet a little bit better off than when we started.
Cool. Well, we've already spent almost 20 minutes of the time where we're trying to keep these open fikas short. We could probably go on rambling for forever about different anecdotes and experiences, but I think we're gonna wrap up and see if there are any comments or questions. So let me switch to the Q&A section. I think this is probably one that's kind of hard to comment on unless you come from within the company. In the meantime, what I can also highlight is that, like I mentioned, this is the first open fika for the season. We will continue doing this because it has turned out to be very appreciated that we are doing these kind of sharings. We're doing high, we're doing low, we're doing commercial, we're doing technical. The next one it's definitely going to be technical. You're going to experience something really cool. You're going to see our CSO, Melissa Jenkins, doing live coding, showing actually how easy, in quotation mark, it is to implement edge machine learning using our product. And that is a very big part of our value proposition, that we expedite and help companies with rapid implementation of these smart features. Melissa will show how you can do that, and you will recognize the syntax if you're a programmer. We will also show how you can actually do it with zero coding. So we're getting to that point where we have a partner, and it will be revealed who that is, where we can do zero coding implementations in a GUI, which is kind of cool. So this is not new just for the nerds, even though I think the nerds will sincerely appreciate it. So make sure you sign up for October 7th, same time, same place, when we have Melissa here in the studio doing some live programming. I think we're gonna start wrapping up. Anything else you want to add, Rikard, before we do?
No, I think it's so much fun being a part of Ekkono and taking it forwards, and I'm sure the next years are going to be the same. Don't you think?
I think so too. And if you're watching this in the recording, you have all the details for how to reach us on the screen right now. So don't hesitate, reach out. You can definitely grab hold of me, Rikard, or anyone else in the Ekkono family. So please do. So without further ado, let's wrap up. Let's everyone have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. And as we all say at the end of every meeting these days, stay safe, take care, and talk to you soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.